growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on
This is
Sunday.
about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns up, giddy up. Welcome to Failure to Stop Night Shift. It's True Crime Tuesday. Brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. I'm here tonight with the host of tonight's show, the beautiful, the sleazy, the easy Andrea Upley. No, I'm just kidding, because I always say the easy breezy, beautiful Drew Breezy. But true. The easy sleazy Andrea just doesn't. I'm not sure that that's the brand you're trying to create for yourself, but
yeah, no, not on this channel.
Not on True Crime Tuesdays. I know we have an amazing case for you as always. The case of the missing boy, Timothy Pitzen. By the way, Andre, I don't know if you know this or not, a little true crime news for you today on this Tuesday.
Tell me.
Madeleine McCann. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Madeleine McCann. They are searching something in Portugal right now.
It's always been Portugal. It's always been Portugal.
I know, but they're back. They're back to Portugal, even though they found a bag of bones one time. Back in 2018, they found a bag of bones. There's somebody else on this channel that's found a bag of bones and took them home with her. Could have been Madeleine's, bless her heart. But no, seriously, that is a crazy story that would make a good true crime episode. But for those of you who don't know, Madeleine McCann disappeared back in 2005. I believe they were in France, if I'm not mistaken, and they were at they left the kids at a resort to sleep. And their twin, they had a set of twins, and then Madeleine and the dad went, they were at a restaurant across the street from the resort where they could physically see the resort. He went and checked on the kids. They were all fine. An hour later, she went to go check on the kids at 10 p.m. and Madeleine was missing. She's never been found. 2018.
That group of friends would take turns going and checking on all, like, communally. They had a bunch of kids there, that big group of adult friends. Yeah. And they'd take turns checking on them.
Have you researched that case enough to have an opinion on it, or do you have any?
Yes and no. I did. It's been so long since I've really read into it that I'm afraid that I would forget some of the details that I would want to talk about.
Right.
But I do know that it was a difficult one because, kind of like a Jean Bonnet, some of the others, the parents weren't incredibly endearing. I do remember that.
They were both doctors. They were both doctors, which means that they were devoted to their careers. More times than not, doctors go all in on that profession. I've got friends that are anesthesiologists. I've got a friend that's a pediatric. Is it podiatrist? Is that
a pediatrician?
Pediatrician. What's a podiatrist?
That's feet.
No, it's a pediatrician. Pediatrician. Anyway, extremely devoted to those jobs, and those jobs ask a lot of you. And I would imagine if your mom and your dad were both doctors, you're probably not getting a lot of mommy and daddy time. I don't know.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I worked with a lot of doctors that would have great family lives. It just depends. Yeah. But either way, they were a bit
like most cops. Most cops don't have good family lives. Generally speaking, cops do not have good family lives.
Well, any job that is going to wipe you, your emotions are tough, your hours are long, it can make things difficult. But either way, they were aloof, kind of to correspondence and things like that. But, that could just be their personality and their kid is gone. I know. My point is kind of like with Jean Bonnet, an aloof personality does not necessarily mean that you murdered your kid, right? Or had anything to do with it. I don't remember coming away feeling like they had anything to do with it. It was just their personalities, but it does sound like she got gone. She got taken.
Yeah. And listen, I'm 100% convinced that it's probably one of those European sex ring things that we hear so much about. I mean, it's a real thing, man. That's a real thing. That movie Taken, that's real stuff. And that's unfortunate, but I mean, they have a lead back to Portugal, and they have an arrest. They have an indictment as of this week. So, that's
I'll do an update this week. Yeah.
One more true crime piece of news that I have, and then I'm going to turn the whole show over to you for the Timothy Pitzen case. But there's been an indictment on the Wizard of Oz Ruby Slippers case. Probably not something you're so much into, but I was following this a long time ago. I remember when they went missing, the Wizard of Oz Museum got broken into, and only one of like 4 original pairs of the red slippers were taken. In 2018, an insurance company, an insurance investigator actually found the slippers and returned them to the museum, which was like groundbreaking, like boom. Well, this week, the FBI made an announcement that they tracked the original thief down, and is from the town that that the slippers were stolen from. He lived right down the road, although none of the employees knew him or knew of him. They were able to make an arrest and indict the guy. And I guess the media asked, and he'll say, "You'll just have to wait for the trial." That was his answer. So very bizarre there, but
oh wow,
there's some cool, interesting true crime. I do remember when those red slippers went missing. I think that was and I remember in 2018 when they were found. So pretty cool that they've solved this case.
That's super cool. I don't have a lot in terms of updates except for Brian Kohberger, the defendant in the Idaho College murders case, had his arraignment yesterday, and he entered not guilty pleas on all. He said he fully understood his charges.
Didn't he do it by not responding at all?
Yeah, he actually stayed silent. And in fact, here it says his attorney rose and said, when asked for his plea to the counts, Kohberger remained silent. His attorney rose and said, "Your Honor, we are standing silent." And the judge then entered the not guilty pleas for him. He was indicted last week on 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of burglary for the November 13 killings. Yeah. So the trial was set for October 2nd. They expect it to last about 6 weeks, and prosecutors have 60 days from yesterday to announce in writing whether they plan to seek the death penalty in this case. So in the next 2 months, we should know a little more about that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a fan of the death penalty in this case. Just me. Yeah. I know it's a touchy subject, but I would crucify that dude if I was allowed to have my way with him. Listen, this is the second show this week coming from my new studio. We are in the brand new studio. Andrea's working on her set right now. That's next. So her set will be looking very similar to this in the next coming weeks. So get ready. And she's got a new camera that she's got to get set up. So that's all. And that's all thanks to our paid YouTube members and our paid Patreon members. All of our sponsors, stamps.com, manscaped.com, ghostbed.com, all those sponsors pay for us to do this. But then the Patreon and the paid YouTube affords us the new equipment and allows us to reinvest into the show. So all the money that we get right now is all going to make sure that everybody has the top line equipment and is able to, you notice that her internet has gotten way better. And since then, my internet's gotten good. All that costs money and time. So we appreciate everybody. If you do want to support us, head over to Patreon, become a paid member, or head over to our YouTube. There's going to be lots of content going on there. I'm going to begin reading chapters of my book that's coming out this summer on the Patreon. So you don't want to miss out on that. Plus just all sorts of extra content that if you enjoy what we do, you'll enjoy the extra content. I promise. Other than that, I have nothing else for you. I'm ready for this missing boy, Timothy Pitzen. By the way, last week's episode that I wasn't here, absolutely incredible. You and Drew Breezy did a phenomenal job.
That was a crazy case.
Crazy case. So two weeks in a row, those were crazy cases. I still can't get the Arkansas case out of my brain.
The boys on the tracks.
Man, that is just been bothering me. And I came home and I told my wife, I said, they should write a book. We should write a book, a true crime book on this Arkansas case. The whole world should know about it. And she's like, oh, honey, that is a book. And it's been a documentary. I was like, well, dude, like, how did people still vote for Hillary Clinton or the Clintons knowing this shit? Like,
well, and that's true. But as we found out at the end of the case, there was, this was a bipartisan effort. Now, clearly it kind of was heavy on the Clinton side for sure.
Well, I know, but the other people weren't running for re-election, Clinton was the big one that everybody knew the name.
But even
I get it was bipartisan, sure.
When you take back a few layers to get to we were talking about Iran-Contra and then the Barry Seals running the coke from Medellin, it's wild.
Wild case. So wild. And that was called The Boys on the Tracks. If you want to go back and listen to that one, highly recommend you go back and listen to that one. It's really good. And then tomorrow we've got Last Call with Josh, or actually we're not calling him Josh anymore. It's just strictly Deadleg. We have killed the name Josh. It's dead. It's no longer there. It's no longer with us. Change his name in your phone to just straight Deadleg. And don't ever want to hear a whisper of the Hush name again, ever.
In my phone, he is Josh Dead, which isn't good.
He's Josh Deadleg in mine. So just make him Dead or Deadleg. I don't want to hear Hush ever again. It's the word that will not be spoken. So Deadleg will be with Last Call tomorrow. Then we have Com Center with Drew Breezy and Jonathan Bates. Friday, we've got Drew Breezy on Failure Stop Breakdown with myself. And then Mondays, Turning It Around back with comedian Jay Durrell. And we appreciate all the love and support that you give us at the Failure to Stop channel, the #1 show where police meet society and culture. Enough of that. It's True Crime Tuesday, Andrea. You look great. You look ready to go. Hit me with some tragic, disgusting true crime that's just going to make my week feel icky. That's what I'm here for.
Well, I will. But first, we're going to do some pop culture and crime for the year 2011.
Oh, 2011. Can I do some guessing or no? Is that not allowed?
You can.
I had no idea. I would guess that maybe Usher was top of the list for music.
You know, this list I don't have a lot of good music references.
Probably.
So some of it, actually, the crime portion, because that's what I'm trying to do too, is a little bit of crime as well. The pop culture is less than impressive. The crime portion is a bit more heavy hitting.
Okay, so
you be thinking about crime.
Crimes. That was 9/11.
That what?
9/11 was that in 2011?
Honey, that was 2001.
I was a senior in high school in 2011 when the Twin Towers went down.
Oh my gosh. Okay, listen. So be thinking about the crime in 2011, and I'm going to start reading some pop culture. So we had the royal wedding. So Kate Middleton and Prince William got married. That was a very big deal that year. Planking. That's when everybody was planking everywhere.
Yes,
like, I'm going to plank on this, and I'm going to plank on that.
Did you ever plank?
I mean, just like in the gym for exercise, or like in my garage for exercise, not like in a Walmart parking lot.
Okay. Damn.
You know?
That would have been cool.
The Walking Dead. It had already been going on, but it was back at its height. It had returned, come back for a new season. Brad Pitt started filming World War Z. So zombies were all the rage in 2011. The Honey Badger. The Honey Badger became a big deal. The animal honey badger.
Don't give a shit.
Yes,
take what he wants.
Yep, that's the one. Melissa McCarthy was just wearing it out on SNL. Got an Emmy for her performance in Mike and Molly. We have Toddlers and Tiaras. Vomit, vomit, vomit.
Parks and Rec? Did Parks and Rec come out in 2011? I think it did.
Well, it should be listed if it did, because that's a great show. Okay, so then crime.
Okay.
Why don't you look over your little right shoulder there?
Oh, Casey?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
That wasn't 2011.
Well, so she was acquitted.
Okay.
She was acquitted in July of that year. David J., thank you for the super chat. Yeah, so Casey Anthony was acquitted in July of that year. Amanda Knox, we've been talking about old Foxy Noxy lately. And
she was supposed to come on the show.
Well, okay. Remember, we're gonna.
I have her phone number. So I have a dry erase board, and our publicist gave us her number. gave me her number. I wrote it down on the whiteboard. Never called it because we never really been to where we're at right this second, where we're able to do that kind of stuff.
Let me call the girl.
I would absolutely let you call the girl, but not want to call her. Oh, he just said that Parks and Rec aired in 2009. I was way off. But David J. left a super chat in here of $20 for John's studio upgrade using those cherry wood panels. Yes, the serial killer basement that he podcasts out of is hilarious. So yes, we will put that $20 to a new brick background. Looks kind of like this one back here.
Yeah.
Thank you for the $20. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you, David J. So Amanda Knox, we have Susan Powell disappearing. That was a big case in 2011. We have the disappearance and presumed murder of Natalie Holloway. Wait, hold up. No, excuse me. But in the Caribbean, where that happened, Robin Gardner was a 35-year-old Maryland woman who vanished in 2011, much like Holloway. So anyway, there's you some catch up on 2011. I don't know. Nice. Anything from like 2007, 8, whatever to like 2018. I just don't remember. Like I don't know what was going on. I can't, any of those years are interchangeable for me. I don't know what was happening when. I just can't. I don't know, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Kind of a blur.
I mean, like, I guess it was all politics after that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I
big
guess.
elections, 2016 election was huge. Then we had COVID after that. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Well, let's do it. Let's talk about Timothy. His name is spelled with 2 M's. That is not a typo. That's a more obscure spelling for sure.
Really? I thought every Timothy I know has 2 M's. Every single Timothy I've
No, they
ever met
don't.
has 2 M's. Yes, they do.
Timothy. I mean, maybe they
Timothy's have
do.
always had 2 M's.
Maybe it does.
How would you spell it?
Oh, it does. Why does it look so weird to me?
Mouthy?
You know why? Because they made a point to say that the mother added the M. Hold on. I'm writing this down. The mother added an M because he was named after her brother that died at birth. No, Timothy is with 1 M. Yes, it is always with 1 M. I just wrote it down.
Golly. Sarah Kelch says in the live chat that she was in 7th grade in 2011. Oh my God.
Oh, God.
That is illegal. That is way too young.
It is.
It was way too young for failure to stab Daddy Eric.
But, oh, you're gross. So, Timothy.
Oh, I felt bad saying it. Oh, man.
I don't think you did. So, Timothy Pitzen. So back, Timothy Pitzen was born in Aurora, Illinois on October 18th of 2004. So, like I said, this case happens in 2011. And in 2011, Timothy was in kindergarten at Greenman Elementary School. So that morning, sorry guys, if you're watching, I know there's like a super bad glare here. So that morning, Dad gets up, and normally Mom, Amy, so Amy and Jim are Timothy's parents. Amy at the time was 43 and Jim was 39. They're there on the screen, happy looking little family.
Great couple, man.
Oh yeah. And Timothy looks just like his dad. The more pictures you'll see, he's
got a shirt on backwards, but we'll get over
I
that.
know. My oldest always had a shirt on backwards up until like last year. Constantly. But so usually Mom would take they called him Timmy, so you'll hear me say Timmy or Timothy, but Mom usually took Timmy to school, but the day before, Mom had had a pretty serious bout of vertigo and had left work early and wasn't feeling great. So that morning, Jim decides that he's going to just take the family in. So he's going to drop Timmy off at school, then drop Amy off at work, and then proceed on to his job. Well, they get in Dad's Jeep, and he does just that. So he drops him off at school at Greenman Elementary. Nothing was out of the ordinary at that time. Later on, Jim, so then he drops his wife off, Amy, at her work. When he dropped little Timmy off, Timmy had a Spider-Man backpack, and he pops out of the Jeep. Love you, Dad. Love you, honey. And he goes into school. He gives his wife a kiss, tells her he loves her, drops her off at work, and then he proceeds on to work. Well, they were still having half-day kindergarten. So I think Timmy was to be picked up at about 10:30, 10:40 that morning. So Dad left, as he normally would, to go pick Timmy back up. And he gets there, and the teacher looked a little confused. And when she says, what do you, Mr. Pitzen, what are you doing here? And he said, oh, I'm here to get Timmy. And she said, oh, no, Timmy's not here. He was already checked out. And he said, when? And she said, oh, at 8:30 this morning. He dropped him off at 8, or I believe at 7:50 in the morning. And so he didn't quite believe her, or thought maybe there was a mistake. So he asked to look at the book, like the sign out sheet. And his mother, Amy, had signed him out at that time. And now Jim is very confused because she never called him to say that she was picking Timmy up. He had no idea why she would have. He didn't even think she was really super comfortable driving right then from the vertigo she had the day prior. So when he asked the teacher why Amy had checked Timmy out, the teacher said that Amy said that there had been a family emergency, so she had to get him and go. And now he's incredibly confused. No one has called him. He has a cell phone. It's turned on. He didn't know of any kind of emergency whatsoever. So he leaves. He goes home. They're not there. And he starts making phone calls. He calls Amy over and over and over and leaves voicemail after voicemail. He's texting her. She's not responding. He starts calling family. Have you talked to Amy? Is something going on? Is there an emergency I'm not aware of? And no one has heard from her, nor did they, think that there was any reason really to be concern. So, excuse me. So, again, some time goes by and he never hears from her. So, let me back it up and tell you a little bit about Amy and Jim. They met in 2002. They'd both gone to some party somewhere, had mutual friends, and pretty quickly hit it off, enjoyed each other's company, started seeing each other pretty quickly, and would drive the hour and a half distance that they were from each other to see each other fairly regularly. Well, they got married in 2004. Amy wound up being pregnant. Now, this is fine, but Amy didn't necessarily want children. And she had said that she was fine kind of living her life the way she was living it without children. And Jim didn't think he was able to have children. He had always wanted children, but when he was 20 years old, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and had some pretty serious rounds of chemotherapy that doctors told him would likely leave him sterile. So he just kind of assumed from that point on as a very young man that he just wouldn't be able to have children. And Amy was fine with that because she was not necessarily wanting to be a mom. So it worked out kind of for both of them that it was going to be okay. So when she became pregnant, it was kind of like a little miracle baby, and they were both very happy. And even though Amy had not planned to have children, she was very excited about the pregnancy. Jim was over the moon. I mean, had not, planned for this to happen at all. And they were both very excited.
So it's going to play out to not be Jim's baby.
No, it's definitely Jim's baby.
Okay, it's definitely.
No, I'll go on and tell you that it's Jim's baby. And the more pictures you look, they look identical.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
Mm-hmm. So this though, and like I said, Amy is about 4 years Jim's senior, so not too bad. But we find out that actually Amy, there were some things that Jim wasn't thrilled about, like this. So he was going to be Amy's fourth marriage. She had 3 failed marriages prior to him at 43 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude, you got to be smarter than that. Do not marry somebody that's been married 3 times previously. Like, huge red flags.
Well, and at her age too. You know what I mean? Like
at 43, that's not old enough to have like 3 wives.
Right. Kind of a lot. So she opened up to Jim, though, about she had a history of some pretty serious depression. So she did tell him, like, this is during their dating time, right? Like before they got married. But she told him she'd attempted suicide twice before. She told him that the first time she'd parked her car on some train tracks and kind of sat there contemplating, end of life. And at the last moment, recanted that decision and drove away quickly. And she was safe and it was okay. But when she did that, she went on and voluntarily checked herself into a psychiatric ward. She spent about a week there. They went on and, of course, she was diagnosed with like clinical depression. They prescribed her some meds and appointed her some counseling. The second attempt on her own life was once they were actually together after they had been seeing each other. And she had, I think it was in 2003, she was driving home from work one day. Actually, she had a job interview that she later got the job, but she had an overwhelming feeling, she said, of like hopelessness and anxiety come over her. And she sat on the edge of a pretty steep, like a 30-foot embankment, I believe, and took a handful of sleeping pills, winds up like passing out and falling down this embankment, broke a couple of vertebrae in her back, and was suffering from severe hypothermia, was passed out, and either a hunter or a fisher found her, called 911. She spent about 2 weeks in the hospital from that. So these are a couple of the times that, that second time she would have passed away if not for having been found. So she was open with him about her history with mental illness, and I would say more so than just some crushing depression as we go on. But
jeez.
So he was aware, he was aware of all of this stuff.
I listen, I've been married for a hot minute now, and but I feel like if I was going to go get back in the game, like I would want to check all the boxes. Like that person would have to check that person would have to like meet a lot of qualifications before I locked it down with him. And like I feel like at that age, she's had 3 marriages. Like it'd probably be hard to then she's like trying to commit suicide. You know what I mean? Like
I
feel like you're signing up for a lot of drama at that point.
It is, and I don't know where they were in the relationship when she started making all of that known. Had they already developed these huge feelings, or who's to say? But he really did. He said he fell for her pretty hard and fast, and he loved her, and he thought, well, it's not ideal, but no one's perfect. We'll
Yeah,
figure it
somebody
out.
made a
That's
good
kind of
point
where he
here in the chats. They said, let's run her through the crazy hot matrix really fast. Bring another picture of her up real quick. Let me see that picture of her.
Well, this is her in like full on mom mode right
yeah,
there.
she's not crazy hot. You know what I mean? But she looks normal. She doesn't look sketchy. I mean,
No, she looks totally normal.
She looks like she'd make a good wife, honestly.
She does. She looks like a good wife and
She
mom. Like, like
doesn't,
kind of a very traditional
right.
sense.
Yeah, she
Mhm.
doesn't tip that crazy hot scale for me. So,
Mhm.
on looks, on appearances alone, she appears to be a marriageable candidate.
I would say so.
A marriable candidate.
I would say so.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where they're at. She gets pregnant in 2004. And Amy's sister, Kara, winds up being pretty outspoken after all of this. To this day, she'll talk about it. But her sister knew about her behavior and her mental health struggles. All she would say, though, her sister would say that they did not have, quote, they did not have an easy family life growing up, but she was never specific on what that meant. So it's Kara and then Amy that we're talking about. And then they have a brother. And evidently, Kara said that as they all came into adulthood, they struggled very differently as the years went on with different issues. So they had some tough times in their childhood. So we're not really sure on that.
Okay.
So she did get pregnant. At first, all was well. She would take little Timmy to zoos and parks. Everything was actually fine. And her mental health situation was looking pretty good. She wasn't having the highs and lows. Jim had said before that she had been put on, like, I think, Wellbutrin and Lexapro for her depression and Ativan for her anxiety. And he had said that when she took her meds, she did pretty well. But when she did not, she would act kind of strange or act kind of funny. And he did say she would have some pretty severe highs and lows. So Amy's sister, Kara, said that soon enough, though, Amy's depression, like after little Timmy was born, finally started to creep back in, more severe, honestly, than ever before. Money problems started to arise, and Jim and Amy's fighting was more and more consistent. So once Jim actually found texts that Amy had sent to her first ex-husband. So remember, she has 3 prior husbands. So the first ex-husband, actually is one that she will say that her depression started after the divorce from that guy. This sounds way too severe to have just cropped up with that first marriage. I don't quite believe that. I'm not saying it didn't exacerbate it, but I don't think that that's what started her mental health struggles. So Jim one time found that she had been texting that first ex-husband and immediately was, and this is once now at this point. Well, at this point, they're married. They've got the kid. Time has gone on. And so, of course, he's angry. He's very upset.
Yeah.
And he did the, basically, you can either pick myself and Timmy or you can pick that guy.
What?
Make your choice because, meaning if you're not going to sit in my home and text this guy, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
We're not doing that.
Well, why is she texting her first ex anyway?
Well, she shouldn't be.
Little late night, little sexy messages.
You shouldn't be texting him, but she chose Jim. But Jim did say that at that time he told her, he told her that if she left or if she wanted to be with this other guy, that basically she wouldn't see Timmy. Like he would pursue full custody and would keep full custody, no doubt about it.
Sure.
And that terrified her, and she stayed. So I don't know if she stayed because she stayed or because of that, kind of threat, if you will. But they got over that hump and they moved right along. One day, Amy, let's see here. No, we already know that about her vertigo. So the morning that he last saw Timothy, Amy was in the passenger seat. We talked about that. He had his little backpack.
There's a lot of discussion in the chats here because we are live on YouTube. A lot of discussion in the live chats about dating and how hard it is to find girlfriends and things like that. I will start by saying you're watching Fair to Stop Night Shift live on YouTube. that's probably where you're going wrong first. Maybe if you weren't watching this live on YouTube
so
on
bad.
a Tuesday night, you could have a girl. I'm just kidding. We have the best fans. We had our meetup last month, and everybody was even
Awesome.
cooler than I thought they would be.
They
Wilcray is in the chat saying that he doesn't.
We're
He's
doxing
having a
him.
hard time. He's having a hard time finding a girlfriend. Listen, Wilcray, I think when you're funny, you have a great sense of humor, and you're a handsome guy. You have a nice beard, so. Anyway, we love you guys, and I just think the live chats are really funny tonight, so thank you guys for that. All right, so did we catch up? Did we catch up to where we're at now? Now listen, what about you? Like, would you be striking out on this chick yet?
Yeah, I'm not happy with the trend. I don't like the way it's going.
Right?
Yeah,
I feel like, but I feel like there's a lot of red flags going into this relationship.
there are.
He's just
But
kind
he
of
had even said, Jim had spoken on it at some point and said he really thought that between like his love for her, like they're at the time like a very healthy relationship. This is before the ups and downs were happening, before all of that. He like they said her sister would say like she and Jim like to talk into the night. They really had a good thing going. So even with the history she had, they were doing fine together. This stuff started creeping up, as time went on and kind of got worse and worse quickly. So we talked about him calling Amy's phone, right? So then we know that Amy picked the child up from school. This is a shock to him still. No family members know what's going on. He's really at first he's confused because he's kind of just angry that she wouldn't call him to say like, I'm just taking him for a day. He was also a little worried though with that vertigo she had the day before that she was driving the child around. That's why he took them in the first place that day. So finally, after he makes phone calls to family and friends, continues to call Amy, that evening he decides to go to the police department to file a missing persons report. They say, well, it's same day. That's his mother. You guys are married. So, basically we're going to give it another 24 hours, we'll say.
Right.
So he goes back home that night. He said he slept on the couch, watched a ball game, had a couple beers. He's irritated, but not super alarmed. Goes to bed. She's not coming home yet. Not bringing Timmy home. That's why he slept on the couch, he said, in case they came in. So when he wakes, though, he goes back to the bathroom. He started thinking about her medication, and he got concerned that, he wanted to make sure she at least had that with her. So he opens the bathroom, like the medicine cabinet. Not only had she not taken her medication with her, she had not been taking her medication. There were 2 full pill bottles there that had not been opened. So she's not been medicated. Now, I will say that Jim spoke on this before and said that at first when she started taking the meds and they were starting to level her out and work, if things seemed awry, he would ask her, did you take your medicine today? And she would get very angry and raise her voice and say she didn't want to talk about that.
It's like when I ask you if you're on your period, you get all butthurt.
Right. And I said, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And so she would say that. And so he kind of just learned over time, like it causes a fight. He just quit asking her, but also just assumed she was taking it, and she was not. So now he's really concerned. So the next day, the authorities actually came to him and decided to go on and proceed in their search. Okay. So what we do know is on that morning in question, May 11th of 2011, this was a Wednesday, I believe, she dropped her vehicle off. So she gets Timmy. She gets to the school around 8:10, 8:15. She leaves around 8:30, 8:35 with him. She had to wait about 20 minutes. And then at 10 o'clock, the alternator light came on in her car. So she drops the car off at a local repair shop. So these are some hard times that we have for her location. Again, this is not when there was all the traffic light cams and stuff. So right. All we have to go off of is her credit card usage and some of these places she stopped at where people would say they talked to her. Drops the car off at 10 a.m. They say, okay, we can fix this today, but it's going to take a little time. So she actually had an employee of the repair shop drop she and Timmy off at the local zoo. So that's not too crazy, right? So she's there at the zoo while her car's being repaired. Around 3 p.m., she gets a ride back to the repair shop and gets the car. They start driving. They drove to the Key Lime Cove Resort in Gurnee, where they spent the night. This is now the Great Wolf Lodge. So it's the water park, if you know, like that.
Oh, the Great Wolf Lodge in North Carolina.
Well, there are multiple ones. It's a chain. This one
Oh.
was in where in the world there? Illinois. Yeah.
Great Wolf Lodge is badass.
Yeah. So that's what it is now, but right. So, but same idea. It was
Right,
called
gotcha.
it was called the Key Lime Cove Resort at the time. So they spend the night. There's video, footage of her going in there with Timmy. They look good and happy. Walk in, no one seems in distress or anything like that. Then the next day, Thursday on May 12th, yes, that's actually, we got a picture up, guys. You can tell it's a very obvious hotel, like lobby, walking toward elevators, hotel carpeting and all that. But you see Timmy with his backpack on, and she's reaching for his hand, and they're walking down the hall. So we have multiple kind of pictures of those kinds of things as they go different places. So they spend the night, and on Thursday, May 12th, they drove she decided that she didn't want to go home yet. She wanted to go to another water park.
Okay.
So still hasn't gone home yet.
She's got a
Keep
thing
in
for
mind,
water parks.
Jim still hasn't talked to them. Family hasn't talked to them at all. They just now the next day is coming and going, and there no communication.
So we're coming up on like 48 hours of no communications.
Well, no, 24.
24
yeah.
hours.
So it's the next day. So they drive to the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin.
Holy shit! How far is Wisconsin?
She drives a long way. I think that one was 160. Don't quote me. There's a lot of different mileage. She stops a lot.
Oh my god! Okay, all right.
It winds up being like a 500-mile trip that she takes.
Now, is this guy still sleeping on the couch through all this?
Oh, he doesn't say what he did that night because things start to change. So they are driving to the Kalahari Resort. There, they were spotted on security footage in the checkout line at 10 a.m. the next day on the 13th, and Timothy has not been seen since. So let's talk about what that looks like.
Wait. So they drove to Wisconsin.
And they went to that water park.
And then you say he's never been seen again since?
And then they leave it.
Okay, and that's the last time they say. Now, has she been seen again?
Well,
or is it just Timmy? Well, before we talk about it, I had a great intro into my ghost bed ad read that you ruined for me about the dad sleeping on the couch. Listen, even if my kids went missing, God, I hope that never happens. It would be dreadful, but I'm still not going to sleep on the couch. I'm going to sleep in my ghost bed because it's just too damn comfortable. And when times are tough, why make them tougher by sleeping on the couch when you could sleep on a ghost bed? Ghost bed makes everybody's lives just a little bit easier, including first responders, law enforcement officers. Mental health starts with a good night's sleep. Right now, the Memorial Day sale is one of GhostBed's biggest sales. So if you head over to ghostbed.com/Wolfpack right now, you can get an adjustable base. You can get all these mattresses have that cooling technology so that if you get hot, you don't have to go necessarily to the water park. You can head right over to your bedroom and lay down on the bed for 5 or 6 minutes, cool down a little bit. That's what I do. Even after I mow the yard, I just go in there and I just take all my clothes off and I spread eagle and I just lay flat. It cools me down a little bit. They also have the pillows on sale right now, which are dope. If you order one of the pillows, they come in a nice little box like the one I'm about to show you here on camera. If I can get it off of the shelf without dying. It comes in a nice little box like this, ships right to your door. You open it up and it is a nice, solid, firm, but soft pillow. It still has that cooling technology. I travel in hotels a lot. I was in a hotel this weekend. I'll be in a hotel on Thursday. I'll be in a hotel next weekend. I can't travel with my ghost bed, but I can always travel with my ghost bed pillow, and that gets me through. So if you're going to go and grab the pillow, you might as well grab the mattress, grab the pillow, grab the comforter, grab the cooling sheets, grab the adjustable base. That thing's incredible. So we really appreciate you. Go to ghostbed.com/Wolfpack, 0% down, 0% financing. And that's if you have Will Cray credit. That's if you have Will Cray credit. I'm sure you could probably still figure out how to get a ghost bed. Also, tax season is amongst us. It is here. And that means it's time to make sure your paperwork is done and your boys downstairs are having fun. Talking about your balls here. Make sure you spend your tax return money on important things this year, like your family, your friends, and your family jewels. Get that ball deodorant. Join the 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code Wolfpack. I love my Manscaped. I use it in the shower. I love the The no nick electric razor for my bush, for my pubes. It has a light, so it lights the way so I don't get lost down there. That's the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Star of the show, baby, offering precise shave on all the wildest hedges, equipped with that little LED light. So even when you're getting lost down in the bush after not shaving for a couple of months, still find your way home. You got the nose trimmer. It's got the crop preserver, the anti-chafing ball deodorant. Huge, big deal, especially now that summer's rolling around. Maybe walking around Disney World or Wolfpack Lodge with your sweaty balls sticking to your leg. Get that crop preserver. Get the crop reviver, which is the spray-on toner for your balls. Keep your boys from sticking to your legs. Listen, guys, go over to get the 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code Wolfpack manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code Wolfpack at manscaped.com. Don't just get your money back this year. Get your swagger back too with Manscaped. Back to you, Andrea.
Very good. Okay. So we know that on May 11th, is the day that Jim dropped Amy off at work and his son Timmy off at school. May 12th, we know that there was a second water park. The day before had been a zoo in the first water park. So then let's talk about May 13th. So now we're looking at 48 hours. Like I said, authorities have come to Jim and they have started an actual kind of search now. And he did let them know his concerns about her medication and not taking it. So between 12 and 1:30 p.m. on May 13th, the Friday, Amy, decided to go on and call. So now this was starting to get there's a little frenzy. She knew people were looking for her. She knew people were going to be calling, and she's been thwarting all their calls. So she starts to call a few family members, including her mother and her brother-in-law, which would be Jim's brother, her husband's brother. So she told them that she and Timmy were safe, that they weren't in any danger. I believe she told her mother something along the lines of just, everything's fine. I just need a break. Just want to change it up a little bit. We're just hanging out. It's fine. I just don't really want to go home right now. We're having a good time. So the cell phone records indicated that the calls were made from an area northwest of Sterling, Illinois, near Route 40. And we'll talk about why that's important in a moment. Timothy was heard in the background during the calls. When she spoke with Jim's brother, Timmy actually got on the phone. He sounded fine. He was chit-chatting. He sounded happy and normal and healthy. He said that he was hungry, but what kid doesn't say that all the time? But he sounded fine. Yeah, he sounded fine. So at 7:25 that evening on May 13th, Amy was seen alone on security cameras at a Family Dollar store in Winnebago, Illinois. So she goes in. You could argue that maybe Timmy was just in the car. Okay. But she goes in alone and she purchased a pen and some stationery and some envelopes. At 8:00 that evening, she was seen at Sullivan's. It's a food store. And she purchased, keep in mind, if she was using cash, it was unbeknownst to us for anything that she purchased with cash, but she is consistently using her cards. So that's how they're able to get, they're pulling her credit card information and then going back to these stores to pull the camera information to see her. So she's leaving a pretty obvious trail at this point. So she purchases, I think it was her favorite snacks, Ritz crackers and some milk she liked to snack on in the evening. So she purchases that at this food store. I know.
Ritz
when I read it, I thought
milk?
that you're going to have to come. I know.
Does she dip the Ritz crackers in milk?
I don't know. I kind of almost feel like she would if she likes them together like that. I don't know.
What's your go-to nighttime snack?
Oh, I don't.
If you got to, if you were
the kids
allowed,
always have cheese sticks, so sometimes I'll wrap some turkey around that or something.
No, but let's say don't have to worry about getting fat. Don't have to worry about anything. What would be
lasagna?
What's your?
If I didn't have to worry about getting fat, it'd be lasagna always.
Your late night cheat meal, your cheat snack would be a lasagna.
If I'm not getting fat, absolutely.
Mine would be Oreos and milk.
I don't care about sweets that much. I like it sometimes, but I don't really care.
I got you. So it's just lasagna.
Or just a giant bagel with all the cream cheese and seasonings and stuff.
That is good. Anything sounds better than Ritz crackers and milk. That seems You know, my mom's
You know
was Doritos and cottage cheese. She would dip
Oh,
her
that sounds
Doritos
good.
in cottage cheese.
I would do that all day long.
Okay. All right.
Because I put I like crunchy stuff with cottage cheese and I like salty stuff with cottage cheese. Like I don't like it with pineapple or fruit.
Fair. That's
When
fair.
I was a kid, speaking of not getting fat, this is wild that whatever. We would put butter on saltine crackers.
Oh yeah, that's good with a little oyster on top.
I'd eat it right now. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So she was at the food store getting her snacks at 8 p.m. that night. Again, keep in mind, unaccompanied. The all the previous video footage had shown Timmy until this past couple, right? So at 11:15, sometime between 11:15 and 11:30, she checked into the Rockford Inn at Rockford, Illinois. Her family at this point, Jim will say that he was starting to feel he's irritated. I mean, he's not happy with her, but he feels more reassured.
Like
because
optimistic because she's coming back
but
to
she's
Illinois.
making phone calls. He's kind of pissed
Okay.
that she didn't call him, but she called his brother. She called her mother. So okay, they're safe.
Cool.
Like they're
Cool.
fine. And when asked, were you concerned that she would do anything to harm Timmy?
Okay.
He and her mother and her sister, to this day, 2023 now, will continue to say absolutely not.
Right.
He was not worried about that then, and he is not worried about that now. He doesn't think that she would ever have done anything to Timothy. So keep that in mind.
All right. I'm still confused because it's like, have we seen her again, or is it just Timmy that's
So
gone?
she checks in. Well, so far we're not seeing him on video footage, right? Like they had a pretty constant video feed of the two of them, and now we're not seeing the child on the video footage. But you could argue right now maybe he was in the car. It was getting late. Maybe he had fallen asleep. She left him in the car, and she's going in these places. But Timmy wasn't seen on the video footage of the last few stops, and like I said, that on between 11:15 and 11:30 on the night of the 13th, 2 days later, she checked into the Rockford Inn in Rockford, Illinois. Okay. So that night comes and goes. The next day at 12:30, maid service comes. There is the chain lock, on the inside of the motel door, like to her room. So the maid starts to open the door to go in to clean. Obviously cannot open it fully, but was enough to see inside. And what she saw was enough to call authorities. She saw a horrible, horrible scene that was very, very bloody with Amy on the floor.
Oh.
Yes. So she calls authorities. They get there. Amy, it initially looks like a crime scene, like a homicide has taken place.
Wow.
Amy's throat was slit and both of her arms and wrists were really lacerated. After spending some time in there, they determined that she had drawn a bath and started to cut her wrist. And no one is going to know why. I don't know if it didn't happen quick enough or what, but she gets out of the bath and stood in front of like one of those like floor length mirrors there and slit her throat and collapsed there. And that's where they found her.
God.
On a table near her was her ID, Timothy's like photo identification card, and a note. We've never been able to disclose. We don't have the full transcript. So we have segments of any of the notes that she wrote. She wrote more than one. We don't have full transcripts of any of them, and that's fine. They also did then find underneath the kind of fallen underneath the bed the box cutter, that she used to commit suicide.
God.
So so the note actually started out with an apology to the maid service that they were going to have to witness this and clean this up.
Why do people do that? The dude that broke my leg that committed suicide in jail, like that's what his apology letter was like, saying sorry that somebody has to clean this up.
Well,
fuck.
They know.
That's why you're sorry? Not for all the other dumb shit that you've done? Sorry that somebody's got to clean your shit up? Fuck you.
So she... so that's what happened.
So does she die? Does she die?
Oh yeah, she's completely dead. And
So
that's
she's
why I say
dead.
that
She's gone.
she's dead and gone. So that's why I say that upon
Oh.
initially walking in, authorities thought that it was a crime scene. Like they thought she had, been
Like,
murdered. It
right,
was,
like somebody
I
had
mean, they
slit
see
her
a
throat.
slit
Yeah.
throat. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then as they start looking around, they realize like, oh my gosh, like no, this was a suicide and of a terrible, in a
I
terrible,
worked a
terrible.
suicide when I was a rookie. We worked a suicide like this, and the girl had slit her own wrist and slit her neck as well in the hotel room. And my buddy who wrote the report reported her as a white woman, because she was gray in color. She'd lost so much blood. Now she lived, but she was a black female. And actually, during the trial, they tried to throw it out as a mistrial because the officer wrote white female. But he just didn't. You know what I mean? She was already
Wait,
light
what
skinned.
trial? Why was she on trial?
Well, just wait. So why we were in the room, and we're rookies trying to figure all this out. And there were holes in the ceiling with little blood rings around it, and in the ceiling. And then we found the dead baby, the dead, just a very small baby. And what she had done, that we assume that she has done, was she crushed up glass and tried to put it in the bottle to have the baby drink the glass, and that's why there was blood around the lips. But I guess after the autopsy, the kid never swallowed it. I guess maybe it was just like wasn't, maybe it was like, ow, this hurts, out. And so she threw the baby up into the ceiling to kill the baby.
So that would be why she's on trial.
Right, but she had slit both wrists and her throat. And that's the only time I've ever seen a suicide with a slit, or somebody slit their own throat.
Yeah.
I've always thought to this day, like so for her it was drugs. Like she was jacked up on, I don't know, like I think at the time they were on the boat or something like that, which is PCP mixture. They also call it embalming fluid, even though it's not, just because it looks like that. But I would think you would have to be on drugs to slit your own throat, right? Like that just seems so.
I mean, you would. Well, if
hard to do.
If your
mentally.
mental health is stable without issues, then yes, you can't fathom doing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But John and Drew on Comm Center last week, it was a very, very heavy show, but they talked a lot about mental health and about suicide and just where you can be without even drugs and alcohol, at that level of desperation or whatever's going on. I would be remiss to say that she didn't have some other diagnoses that I've not heard that she was diagnosed with anything else, but there were some other things going on that just seemed different than clinical depression that leads to suicide. I feel like some of these highs and lows we talk about, I don't know. I don't know if we had some other stuff going on. So the police come to Jim's home and knock on the door.
Yeah.
And they walk in, and he was immediately relieved. He's ever hopeful, like I said, to this day. And he thought, oh, they found him. Thank goodness. And they start immediately just asking him some questions. Where were you last night? And he's answering their questions. And then he realized they seemed as though they were trying to establish an alibi for him and, figure that out. And then they said, well, we found your wife. And he's, okay, thank goodness. Where is she? Where's Timmy? And they said that she was deceased. So immediately he's reeling and trying to figure that out. And then he's like, okay, where's Timmy? And they're like, we don't know. Like, he wasn't there.
What?
So Timmy was nowhere to be found, nor were Timmy's backpack. She had bought him some clothing. We know this through some receipts at the store she had stopped at. She had bought a couple of pieces of clothing and some toys for him on their little 2-day excursion. So his backpack, toys, and clothes were not there. Neither was her iPass. So she had, you guys, if you're familiar with like toll roads and things like that, if you have to commute on one consistently, you would have that little iPass, and that keeps a track of all of the tolls you've passed through. So that was not present, and nor was her phone, her cell phone. So Timmy and all of these things are not there. So immediately, of course, the search is on. They're trying to figure out where in the world Timothy could be. So interesting phone calls, though. When she was on the phone with Jim's brother the day prior, she told him that Tim was hers and that she could do what she wanted to with him. there had been a bit of struggle of control. We talked about Jim threatening custody if she
Right.
left him. And so there had been a little back and forth of like, he's my son or he's my son. And so you could take that to mean she's going to do the ultimate horrible thing to Timmy, or just like, no, he's my child. Like, I can take him out and do things with him if I want to. Right.
Right.
So she also said in the days following her death, I think within 2 days later, we established that there was a note in the hotel room where her body was found. Well, prior to her death, she had evidently mailed out a few letters. So a couple days after her body was found, a couple of friends and her mother received these letters in the mail from her. So in the, she did not send one to her husband. In fact, she did reference her husband in her mother's letter, and he would never say exactly what it said, but just basically, he said very demeaning things, like that she hated him, that he was a loser, like just really hateful things to him. So he's got to process that too. Like his wife's dead. She's committed this horrible, gruesome suicide, and, been hateful to him in these letters. She did write in her mother's note, it said, "I've taken him somewhere safe. He will be well cared for, and he says that he loves you. I'm sorry, and I know you'll be upset about this, but in time you'll heal. Please know that there is nothing that you could have said or done that would have changed my mind." She said she felt like she never felt like she ever belonged in the world. And I felt like for a long time that I did belong here once Timothy came around, but in the end, that wasn't even enough, and I need to go. She also specifies that Timothy is safe and that she has left him with people that love him and will take care of him, but that they will never see him again. So
what?
That's what she leaves. That's the information that they have, is that she's apologizing and saying like, he's fine, he's safe, I'm leaving him with other people, but none of you will ever see him again. So not even just a stab at her husband if she hates him so bad. Like,
Did she leave him with the ex?
No.
We know that for sure?
I'm pretty sure we would know that. I'm quite sure that he's probably been talked to at this point.
Okay.
I mean, this was 2000. This was 12 years ago.
So I'm guessing he's
almost
still
to
not
the
found.
date, actually. Huh?
He's still not found? Is that what you're saying?
Timothy has never been seen since.
Whoa.
Nor have remains been found. Nothing. So let's talk a little bit about this.
Wow. So he's out there. Like, he's fine. He's alive. Like, how does he not know that he's Timothy? Like, with all the media and the news and podcasts, how does he not know
if he's
that
alive,
Timothy Pitzen?
then yeah, maybe he'll figure it out. He would be, that was what I say, 12. So he'd be 18 now.
Oh, he's got to be getting close. Come on, dude. Turn on a podcast, Timmy. Come on,
well,
Timothy.
I like your positivity that he is still alive.
I mean, I would believe that, like, that she would leave him with somebody, right?
Okay.
Of course, that would be really hard to find somebody that would be okay with taking a child. I don't know.
Right.
That'd be hard to work out.
Mm-hmm. So whatever happened to him, they say, of course, seemed to certainly occur in the hours following her phone calls, because pretty soon after that, she turned her phone off. After she made those phone calls home on the 12th, the night of the 12th, her phone was then turned off. And like I told you, her phone was missing. She drove south along the Rock River to Sterling, Illinois, a small manufacturing and steel town that was about 80 miles west of Aurora. Her family was not aware of what. Now they're getting this information from like the toll stuff, right? And her GPS and all the things that they could find. So her family wasn't aware why she would ever have been driving towards Sterling. They didn't know if she had any, or they didn't know that she had any acquaintances there, but her iPass history showed that months earlier, she had actually made 2 trips to that same area, which she never mentioned to Jim or any other family member. So there's some speculation that maybe she was scouting a location to do something terrible. Maybe she was meeting up with someone. Maybe she
What's
was
in
planning
Sterling?
something.
Is there something in Sterling? Is there?
No, it's like it literally says that it's a manufacturing and steel town. I don't think there's a whole lot going on there.
Okay.
So they actually investigators consider this one of their few more solid leads, knowing that she had gone there in a couple times months prior. So at 8 p.m., we don't really know where she went. But that's when she went to Sullivan's and whatever, like after she turned her phone off. At first, investigators were actually encouraged that we couldn't find Tim's backpack and his toys and things like that, because they thought, okay, well, maybe those things are just with Timothy.
Right.
What we
for
do
sure.
know is that there was one piece of clothing, a T-shirt, and that was purchased from the zoo that they went to the day that she picked him up from school. And it was Timothy's shirt that she had purchased there. The running belief now is that, like, she wanted that comfort item. Like, she wanted that with her when she ultimately ended her life. So let's talk. A couple days later, not long after, on May 14th, her car was found. It was a 2004 Ford Expedition that was blue. The police said that it was visibly dirty. It had tall grass or weeds underneath. And so this is interesting because they started to do some forensics on this car. Actually, a third party, like an independent forensic analysis unit, was called out for this. This stuff I think is always so crazy and interesting how they can do this, to do like forensic plants and things like that. I want to do a whole show on forensic entomology where you can solve something based on the bugs, right? So here they look at the car, and I'm going to read just verbatim what they said. They said sediments and plant material on the vehicle indicate that it was stopped for an unknown period of time on a wide gravel shoulder, gravel road, or short gravel turnout. In close proximity to the gravel shoulder or road where the vehicle stopped, it backed into a grassy meadow or field to a spot that is nearly treeless. They note that there are birch and oak trees in the general area, but not directly over the spot where the SUV stopped. They found both Queen Anne's lace and black mustard plants that they would be growing in a row along the border of the field or the shoulder of the road where the car had traveled. In addition, there would be no corn growing. Keep in mind where they are, a lot of farming and things like that. There would be no corn growing in or adjacent to the spot where the SUV stopped. Instead, the evidence strongly suggests that grasses have been the only major plants growing in the immediate area, which leads scientists to believe that this was a meadow. And forensic results indicate that the grass was not cut, so that helps rule out a rural residential lawn or a park. There's also a strong likelihood that there's a pond, small stream, or creek in the area. I don't know if they searched streams and creeks. That's one thing I've yet to find out, and I would like to know if they believe that that's something based on the forensics of the car that was around. I don't know. The last time anyone had contact with Timothy was when he talked to his uncle on May 13th on the phone at about 1:30. So as far as we know, that's the last time we can confirm Timothy's well-being. And that call was traced to a point about 5 miles west of Sterling near Route 40. So this is interesting. In 2013, so 2 years have gone by at this time. Still no hide nor hair of Timmy. It's 2013. Her phone was found beside Route 78, and it said it was alongside the road on Illinois Route 78, north of Mount Carroll, Illinois. And this was behind kind of a grain structure bin. It appeared to have been tossed or dumped regardless. And at 2 years' time, the phone was in working order, and they tried to begin phone extractions the best they could, but they didn't really have any leads from that. Nothing really helped. When they found the car, though, immediately a concerning issue was that copious amounts of blood were found in the back seat of the car. It would be right beside where Timmy's, they keep saying car seat. He was 6, so he was probably like in a booster or like an upright booster, 5-point harness type thing. Was where he would have sat, like right next to where his seat would be, generally speaking. It was also, if I can find that, there was a certain mineral in soil that was just found in those western counties there in Illinois, and that was found in that back seat as well. It looked like there had been soil that had been wet and it had rained the day prior. So there was a mixture of that blood and that soil in that back seat. But they
So
said,
like Like, I guess, like saying that she would have killed him and buried him. Is that what that's kind of
Potentially.
like leading to there?
It's what it sounds like.
Alluding to?
No shovel has ever been found. No, I don't. Could she have tossed a shovel in someone's backyard? They're out in the rural whatever, and no one know the difference or care. Maybe
Sure.
I don't know. But so they test this blood for DNA, and it does come back, in fact, as Timothy's. Now, where
Damn,
there's
I was hoping Timothy was still alive, man.
where there's a wrench in that is that there was a bit of differing opinions on how old that blood was. It was well dried, and some think that it was a bit older than just the 24 to 48 hours prior. And his family is also on the camp saying, no. Timothy suffered from massive nosebleeds. And when he got one, it would go everywhere. And his dad confirmed that he had a nosebleed in the car about a month prior.
Okay. All right. Well, okay.
But it doesn't really explain the soil situation, which was only found.
I mean,
found everywhere.
Kids step over their seat to get into their car.
I understand, but keep in mind where that mineral in the soil is located is in one of the counties that she traveled in after he was no longer visible on surveillance. Like, if he was getting in and out of the car and it was like somewhere that we knew he had been, okay, that makes sense. Kids get dirt everywhere. You're right. But after we're no longer seeing him, she's in the county where that particular soil resides.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
So a lot of time goes by. And keep in mind as well, guys, the box cutter that they found near her body in the hotel room only had her blood on it. So that's pretty clear cut. That was only used with her and her blood.
I just don't see
that we know of.
I guess I could see her killing her kid, but
also in the surveillance footage of her going to that Sullivan's that night, which was the last surveillance of her before she checks into the hotel. And then when she checks into the hotel between 11:15 and 11:30 that night, she had on a different outfit than what she had on just prior. And what she had on in the prior surveillance videos was never found. It wasn't in the room. Okay. So there's that. So this was all in 2011, and again in 2013 was when her phone was found, and it was pretty much crickets after that for about 6 years. Nothing was going on. But then in April of 2019, I believe it was the 3rd. Yes, April 3rd of 2019, about 8 years later, a woman in Newport, Kentucky, just across the river from Cincinnati, all right, spotted a young man who looked disheveled, frail. He was bruised. He looked upset. He was agitated and pacing. She goes up to him. He says, "Can you please help me? I just want to go home. Please help me. I just want to go home." So she calls authorities. And then when he gets to talking, he said he had been kidnapped and held at the Red Roof Inn, the local Red Roof Inn, by 2 men. So authorities start talking to him. By 2 men. There were white guys. He said they looked kind of like a bodybuilder type. They had tattoos. He described them very specifically. He said that he had been traded. He had been trafficked. He said very specifically that he had been passed around, basically. Started to talk of the abuse he endured. He said he was 14 years old. And when they asked him who he was, he said his name was Timothy Pitzen.
Whoa.
So immediately news gets a hold of this. Broadcasts start spouting this all over the news. They do it so quickly that the family hasn't even heard this yet. They've not even been alerted by authorities. A family member sees it on the news and starts calling around. Everybody's losing their mind. What's going on? And they had been ever hopeful this whole time that he was alive. Again, they continue to maintain that she would never do anything.
She left a note that said he was okay.
I know. So they are like, what? So they start getting on the phone with authorities. Authorities are taking him to the local children's hospital there in Cincinnati to get him checked out physically as they're talking to him. This is what he was wearing.
That looks like the kid though.
So he's wearing a red The guy is wearing a red hoodie with the hood up and like a kind of like an OD green jacket on top of that. So listen, authorities are talking to him, take him to the hospital. Family is getting excited and just buzzing. If you can imagine what's going on. It's been 8 years with nothing. They start driving. They start making this long trek. At this point, Dad lives in Iowa. All right. So they are starting to make this long trek towards Cincinnati to get a hold of this guy to, whatever. And Dad talks about it, just the idea of that reunion and how he anticipated it. And then authorities talk to him and do some blood work, and his DNA is unequivocally not that of little Timothy. In fact, not only is he not Timothy, he's not 14. He's 23 years old. He had just gotten out of jail a couple of months prior.
Damn.
He was diagnosed. He's a known bipolar sufferer that had a habit of claiming sexual abuse and trafficking as though he were a minor. And he actually was tried and convicted of identity theft and a couple of other things based on this, and served a couple of years in prison. But when his family talks about it, as you can imagine, I mean, crushed. I'm
crushed, dude.
Yeah.
I'm invested at this point, and I
the
thought,
dad was just talking about therapy. It took him, it took them all back to when it happened. So this guy's name was Brian Reaney, and he was just
damn it, Brian,
wackadoodle.
son of a bitch. He looks like Elijah, our underpaid producer.
A little bit.
Oh man, that is just such a wreck for the dad.
That was terrible.
Man.
So we're gonna start to wrap it up, but first I do want to pull. Grab some statistics on what is called filicide. Filicide is the murder of a child by their parent, and I wanted to kind of look at that and see what we have.
So you think you think he's murdered? You're going down that road?
Not necessarily, but I'm gonna talk on both sides of that, and then let you you guys think about what you think.
Yeah.
So actually, a study in the Journal of Forensic Science International looked at 3 decades of filicide cases between 1976 and 2007, and found at that time that they occurred about 500 times a year, meaning 500 times a year a parent kills a child. The statistic of it being a step parent is very, very low in comparison. So generally speaking, it's a biological parent.
So we should ban biological parents. Assault.
I think people are trying. About 72% of those killed by their own parents are 6 years old or younger. Usually it's not an older child. Actually, a third of those victims are just under a year of age. But if they are adults, they're generally going to die by guns. If they are the child victims, they usually pass away from what they call personal weapons, which would be choking, beating, drowning, those kinds of things. I know this is very terrible and horrible, but it's interesting because she didn't have, she wasn't diagnosed with an acute postpartum psychosis or one of these things. This was an ongoing battle that she had with mental health. And now the kid's 6 years old when he goes missing, and potentially if something happened to him. So about 40% or 40 to 44% of the cases were mothers, with the next, 50, 55%, whatever, being the father. So it's kind of equally committed between mothers and fathers. And like I said, only 10% were the step parents. But let's talk about real quick. There are a few major reasons. There's we've talked before about acute psychosis. So you have something that, you're inconsistent with reality. This can happen often if it's a mother with a postpartum diagnosis after the fact. It could be an unwanted child if they are regarded as a hindrance or a nuisance. That's not quite as prevalent in the cases of filicide. There's accidental death that happen with children. And there's spousal revenge, where people will do stuff to keep the other person from being able to have that child. The last one we'll talk about is altruistic filicide. So the definition there is because the parent kills the child because he or she may perceive it to be in the child's best interest. It may be reality-based, or it could precede the suicide of a parent, as the parent feels it would be unfair to leave the child behind to face the cruel world. So investigators, if they believe that this child has been murdered, they most likely think it was it would be deemed, an altruistic filicide, murder of the child, because she had already said that she was not long for this world. She never felt like she belonged here. She thought Timothy fixed that for her, but he didn't. The stigma of leaving behind a child of a suicide victim, is an issue. There's the camp that if she did murder him, the whole reason for the note and everything else was to further hurt Jim. It looked like she went out in flames in terms of being hateful with him and angry toward him. So to almost to console her family by saying that he was safe and okay, but also to really hurt Jim because he'll never see him again. In the camp of him being alive, there are a couple of thoughts there. One of those highways, though, that she traveled that we had talked about, and with that soil that had that certain mineral in it, around there are multiple Mennonite communities. And there are quite a few people who think that she would have gone to them to say that his dad was being mean to him. Now, keep in mind, there's no record or anything to indicate anything like that.
But you think the Mennonites would not tolerate that, right? Like they would.
Okay, we're probably going to wrap it up.
I
feel like battery saver mode is maybe happening right now. Which I was pretty much done anyway. The Mennonite thing, and Dad will say that he has a particular idea. He thinks maybe the child has been given away to somebody. He won't be specific because he doesn't want to leak any information that he thinks he kind of knows, and that him saying this did lead him to get on the phone with German authorities. So we don't know. I will say this real quick. At the time of Timothy Pitzen's disappearance, he was 4 feet 2 inches and weighed about 70 pounds. Of course, that was many years ago. He has brown hair and brown eyes. There are no solid leads to this day. If you have any information, you can call the Aurora Police Department, and we'll put it on Instagram as well at 630-256-5500. Obviously, you can always call 911.
Or the comm center with Drew Breezy. They will get you in the right direction.
Call 911 or 848. I say it wrong every time. 848. Call 911.
Drew Breezy in the live chat says German authorities is his band name. I would just like to go and say that my daughter, who is on the way and is due to be here in August, I think I'm going to name Filicide. Filicide Tansy. Nope. Beautiful, beautiful name.
I am on Power Saver, but
I am hoping I'm on Timothy Still Alive camp. And just waiting on his 23andMe.
Okay.
What camp are you in?
I go back and forth. I don't think he's alive.
Damn. I mean, I feel like if he was alive, he would have already seen all of this news somehow, some way.
And that's why they say the Mennonite communities, because they say he's tucked away somewhere or maybe out of the country.
He's not going to do that shit. And what out of the country is she? Did she go to an airport or something? I mean, I don't know.
No, but I mean, if she could have handed him off, and I mean, the kid could have a fake. People do crazy stuff, right? Things can happen, but I don't think that's what happened. I think that something happened to him that night. But I hope I'm wrong.
That's sad. Listen, guys, we've got a lot of stuff coming out this week. Join me tomorrow for Last Call with myself and Deadleg, and then be looking out on that new Patreon for some insider readings of Pig Latin, a seriously funny true story, as we wait for the publishing house to come back with their verdict on what they're going to do with this book. That's what we're waiting on. But for the Patreon members, I am going to throw you a bone and read a chapter tomorrow for you guys on Patreon. And then got lots of stuff coming out this week, guys. Lots of stuff. Big case coming out on Friday from Drew Breezy and myself. So until next time, guys, this has been True Crime Tuesday Night Shift with the beautiful Andrea. Up late. Follow her on Instagram. Until next time, cheers.
Night, y'all.